Okay, so it's a celebration. It's the end of the Castle Lager Rugby Championship. The Springboks are champions. They're going to be drinking lots and lots of sponsors' products out of the trophy tonight.
Me.
And probably one of the most dominant performances I've seen a Springbok team under Rassie Erasmus do. Probably the best performance outside the World Cup and maybe one of those games in New Zealand.
How's it? Sorry, just somebody made the point. You didn't introduce me
sorry.
last time. I'm Gavin Rich.
Hello, Gavin Rich. Sorry, he's Gavin Rich, by the way, if you don't know. I'm Brendan Nell.
No, repeat the question.
Anyway, sorry. It was a very dominant performance, Gav.
Oh, completely. I mean, sitting there in the press box. In fact, in some ways, I can't remember who we were talking to before the game, and somebody said, "What do you expect?" And I said, "I've got a feeling that it's going to be a bit like Mbombela last time when they played the All Blacks, and they started. Remember, they dominated the first half of that game, but they didn't put the points on the board. Today they did. It was a very dominant performance. It was a performance that mixed traditional South African forward power with bits of flash and the most sublime handling from that Springbok team. I know we'll speak about Manie later as well, but you and I sitting in the press box, and it's great to be sometimes at the ground in a place like this where the press box is up high and you can see the space on the field, and you just saw what space Manie was creating with those amazing long passes of his and his kick passes. I know he got one or two wrong, but his kick passes as well, just mostly on point, and he was a complete handful for the opposition. Although I'm not saying that he was the only star. I mean, every man in the Springbok side today really excelled.
Well, it was quite interesting when you were taking a photo with Rassie Erasmus.
Yeah.
Afterwards, there's a long story behind that. Don't worry, he's not a fanboy. But
I mean, I didn't ask for it. I think it was Henry Cronje who set that up. But anyway, carry on. Yeah.
But when you Sia was still in here and he started chatting to us afterwards, and I said to him, "Yeah, Manie Libbok, and let's just get Manie out of the way, I suppose, in a way."
I don't want to do that. I think we keep it. But anyway.
I said, geez, he was really played with so much confidence. And Sia stood here, and after the press conference, everybody had walked out. And he said, listen, what we did this week, we all went to Manie and we said, we're going to make sure we help you through it. He said, but Manie did it himself.
Yeah.
He says, we were all there for him. And that just shows you and I think the point I want to make there is that I don't think sometimes we realize how special this team is and how well they play. And tonight, they left still probably 5-6 tries out in the field.
Yeah.
In fact, they had one disallowed, which was very close.
Yeah.
But, yeah, they are a very special side.
Well, I actually think Argentina have improved. And watching them today, I think that they've got a lot more pluck than they had before. They were defending. I mean, they had to make a huge amount of tackles tonight. And I think that if that had been the previous Argentina side, like say from a couple of years ago, I think the Boks would have gone more than 70 or 80 tonight. Because it wasn't as if the Boks weren't clinical. There was some very good defending from Argentina.
Yeah.
And they tried to stay in the fight. You know, right at the end, it was Argentina on the South African line. Some teams would have just lain down and died because South Africa played with such ferocious intensity. They were so relentless, and their handling has become so good that they were able to retain possession through phase after phase. And I just thought that the handling was sublime. Yeah. And you know, going back to Manie, I think that Manie just creates so much in that position, the fly half. His passing game, like left and right, is just outstanding, and the length of his passes, and that does create an extra dimension for the Boks.
Yeah, and they moved the ball quickly, and that was the thing. You could see they wanted to move side to side very quickly.
Yeah.
Have the big forwards Sia and Peter Steph out wide. Yeah, but they still. I think the one impressive thing was they still maintained the physicality. Some of those hits up close, Jasper Wiese running at guys, Elrich Lowe. Yeah, there's some real physicality that you have to contend with. You can't just spread out, fan out. You've got to actually. And then they scrambled well when Argentina, because they did make mistakes. And I think this was, as when I say it was probably the most dominant performance I've seen. Argentina weren't really ever in this game.
No,
they didn't have a look in. There was no moment they said, you know, if we only score here, we'll be back in this game. And they were just blown away from the start.
You know, people talk about Tony Ball, and when you talk about Tony Ball, it's obviously, I know you hate that term, but it actually comes from the cricket's Baz ball, which was England's Baz ball when Brendan McCullum came and took over as the England coach. And you know, I watched a lot of England cricket for some reason, maybe because they take Test cricket seriously. No, because they take Test cricket seriously, whereas our country just seems to neglect neglect Test cricket, and I love Test cricket. So I've watched a lot of them, and Bazball's being refined at the moment. In the beginning, Bazball was like just all in out attack, and then they came unstuck, I thought, in the Ashes last year, and so they've refined it. And the Boks at the moment aren't sort of. They're not going for a radical sort of overhaul of their game. They mix it up, and they mix it up very well today. They drove the ball up when they had to. They scrummed. They scrummed exceptionally well, and they scrummed Argentina out of the game, and that's really it. If you mix it, you need to mix it up, and that's what the Springboks are doing much better than they ever did before.
I must admit, there was one of our friends here, the young Borchardt, who said outside he went to Don Heman afterwards, and he said to him, "How many scrum penalties did you get?" And Don sort of looked at him like typical deadpan Don, and he just said, "All of them." So they were so dominant in the scrums. I actually felt it was actually a pity, because I think they would have loved to scrum more, but just the way that game was going and the pace they were going. There's a couple of times I said to you on that where South Africa scored, how slowly Argentina came back to the kickoff. They were even not only when they had the yellow cards, but they were really trying to slow the game down, and they weren't succeeding.
They knew that they were facing a hiding. Look, what South Africa did today was what they started out doing last week. The first 20 minutes last week, they were sublime. Remember, I said that's almost a perfect example of the type of rugby they should be playing. Although I sort of also felt that they ran themselves out on their feet a bit. Remember that they're also playing at home. It's very different to playing over there. So when Argentina came back and scored their only try of the game, but their first try, and made it 14-7, I think there might have been some South African fans out there who sort of thought, got nervous and thought, this is what happened last week, and they'll come back. But it's a huge difference scoring a try against South Africa in front of this Mbombela crowd they're so fiercely partisan and so pro-South Africa, to scoring it in front of your own fans in a very hostile environment. And that last week they got the wind in their sails, because their crowd came in and they picked up all that awesome momentum. It was never going to happen today, because they were playing in Mbombela, and the Springboks just played with such intensity. You said to me before the game, almost as if you were being a bit alarmist, you said the Springboks look very serious, as if that was something to be concerned about. And I remember saying to you, well, I'm glad they haven't arrived with a packet of cigarettes and they're having a laugh. So it's nice. It's nice when the Springboks are serious. And today they were very serious, and they clearly had a point to prove. And I said to you in the week, in fact, I think after the morning after the San Diego game, I said, well, what did I say? I'm actually completely forgetting what I was going to say now. Where are you going to go and go along? No,
this is what age does to you. But anyway.
Yeah. No. After the Argentina game last week, I just sort of felt that that in a way, I was almost pleased. That's what I said. I was almost pleased that the Springboks had lost the game. Not pleased, but I sort of felt, well, this gives them a reason to respond next week, and it puts something on this game. And I think Rusty said it at the press conference that he said maybe if we'd won last week, it would have just been about rugby stumping it today, and it wouldn't have been quite as big an occasion. But the fact that there was something on the line, and the Springboks had to respond, they had to be up, and they produced, as you say, probably their best performance of the season. This wasn't one of those games. Every other game this year, I think we've said afterwards, this was the Springboks won, but they weren't at their best. And I still don't think that they're completely at their best today. But today was better than it has been. And I just feel that today you can see where their game is growing. That handling, the skills that they have, and what they're actually willing to do on the field. Did you see that little black flip pass from Jaden Hendricks at one stage from a defensive scrum? And I remember you saying it looks like Harry casual, but the Boks have sort of got into that sort of.
They were playing with so much.
They've got into that space now where they can almost be sort of like a little bit arrogant about the way they play, and I think maybe a little bit arrogance probably tripped them up last week, but it was never going to tonight, because they had the bit between their teeth from the start, and they were just so determined to win.
Well, I mean, I'd like to say, if you look at it overall, this Rugby Championship. They've won the Rugby Championship, I think, I haven't looked at the log, but I would say it was probably 9 or 10 points now.
Yeah.
Ahead of everybody.
Well, they were 5 ahead of Argentina.
They got 5 today.
And they got 5, so that's 10. I don't know if the All Blacks overtook Argentina this morning. They might have.
It's more than a game difference. It was probably the most emphatic win in the Rugby Championship that we've ever had.
Yeah.
In 98, if I remember right, was pretty close. 2004, the Boks won. 2009, they were quite dominant.
No, 2004, it was every team won two games, and it was decided in the end on bonus points, if I remember correctly. 1998, the Boks won every game, so that was dominant. In 2009, they lost only one game. In fact, 2009, and we're talking about Tri-Nations now, not Rugby Championships, but it is pretty much the same thing. But 2009, we won 5 out of 6, and it was exactly the same as this. We were tripped up in Brisbane against an Australian team that we dominated the week before in Perth, and it was a game they should never have lost, but they played us at our own game. If I remember correctly, the Springboks, like Farid Dupree and company, had been so brilliant before that, and then that day they were outplayed by a team that actually for once dominated got fronted it forward. And that's, let's be honest, we're talking about Manie's game tonight and how brilliant he was, but both my grandmothers might have been able to play fly half behind that pack, because that pack was moving forward even I could probably play fly half behind that pack. They were just so brilliant. He had so much go forward ball, so much space to play. So there is that caveat, but that's what the Springboks play for. And behind that forward platform, it's very hard to keep Manie and let's not forget Damien Delendi and Jesse Creel. I thought was outstanding today.
Both of them.
Cheslin was always looking for work.
Yeah, in my view, this was probably the most dominant performance of a Springbok team in the Rugby Championship, and probably in the Tri-Nations for me as well. And the thing I want to say is even though they were so dominant, they scored 7 tries, if I remember right. Even though they scored 7 tries, they left 5 or 6 out there. Yeah. And if they really,
as I say,
if all those passes stuck, we would have seen a rout here. And this is against a team that beat the All Blacks, a team that put 60 on Australia, in Argentina. But still, Argentina's problem is they struggle the whole time with consistency. But today they were just blown away.
Yeah, it wasn't. It wasn't. I wouldn't say. I wouldn't say that the Argentinians didn't pitch today. Whereas in Eden Park, it looked as if they just didn't pitch. It was like, they just weren't at the races that day. Whereas today, in those early minutes, before the Springboks had scored their first try, you could see the Argentinians were putting their bodies on the line. They were holding the box up on the line, and the Boks were throwing themselves in. Eben Etzebeth playing in his record game. Peter Steph du Toit. It's almost like pointless to mention how good he is, because he's good every week. So it's it almost goes without saying. His engine and just how tireless he is.
What I've liked is I've liked to see the growth in other players, because we expect Eben to have a good game. We expect Peter Steph to have a good game, but
Ruan Nokia.
I was going to say Ruan Nokia. Ox has always been on the way up, etc. Gerard Steenekamp has been great. We've got great hookers. We know that. Elric Lowe has had a great season as well.
Yes, he surprised me.
Has been always been good, so we know, and he's good off the bench as well. Jaden was good, and we've now got how many scrum halves that we can pick from?
Jaden was outstanding.
Yeah,
I thought Jaden was outstanding.
So, and then you look at the back line.
Afaleli.
Yeah, Afaleli has really come along, and his comments will be up on Monday. They embargoed for Monday, but basically talking about how he was sent back to work on his defence and the way he's sort of got his mindset right and he's got his game right, and now he slots into this back line. And today, as you say, any fullback would have looked good, but he looked exceptionally.
Well, they still put high balls onto the box. Cheslin had quite a lot to do in that regard as well. Afaleli Fussi's just grown up, I think. Yeah. He was a precocious young talent, and he's matured, and a lot of players do at some point. And I think he's gone through that barrier from being a young player who was raw to being not quite the finished product, but he's on his way to being the finished product.
I think the thing as well is we must realise this back to my point. This is a golden generation of Springboks at the moment, and when you won 2 back-to-back World Cups and you've now won the Rugby Championship, you won 2 Rugby Championships. I think the other one was with the asterisks because it was only 1 round. We must realise we're in a very good spot as South African rugby at the moment, and that has made the fans' expectations high. Yeah. That's why people got upset last week when the Boks didn't win, even though they made 10 changes and they lost by a single point. But that's where we're getting to now, and that's where you want Springbok rugby to be, where you, I won't say expect to win, because that sounds arrogant saying that, but when you go in with a confidence like the All Blacks used to go through, like you and I have covered so many All Black games, and you see how confident the All Blacks are going into any game.
Well, I almost want to sort of disagree with you about the golden generation, just in the sense of when you say it's a golden generation, it's almost as if you're having this great patch and it's not going to continue. And I think that the Boks are going to keep getting better for a couple of reasons. One of them is the depth that is growing through our participation in the United Rugby Championship and the Investec Champions Cup. The coaches have to spread their depth because you don't always play your top players. So there's depth coming through in South African rugby at the moment like never before. And I think that because of Rassie's policy of renewing the team and giving the younger players a part, I think that we're going to see a sort of a seamless transition between the old players and the new players, and it'll go on to another successful generation. And also, maybe I'm more of a supporter of the Tony Brown way than other people are, just because I always felt that South Africa needed a different dynamic, and they needed to work on those skill levels, which they clearly have. They needed to work on being more ambitious on the field and what they could do, and that's coming through now. And a lot of overseas coaches used to always say to me, usually sort of in off-the-record conversations, they used to say, we're very scared of the day that the penny finally drops for the Boks when they realise that they can actually play another way as well. Yeah, and they now can play another way. So I don't know. I'm not saying we're going to keep winning World Cups. I mean, winning World Cups are you come down to, we could have got knocked out by England in the World Cup semi-final last year. I mean, a World Cup is a lot about what happens on a particular day. But I think that we could head into an era of consistency where we win lots of rugby championships, where we're consistently challenging at the top. I just can't understand how Ireland are number one. But anyway, that's a whole other story.
Yeah, the Springboks have lost 2 games this year, one with 1 point to Argentina and one with 1 point to Ireland, and you get knocked off after winning a World Cup. It makes no sense. But then there's probably the same people who organised the Duckworth-Lewis thing as well, probably worked that one out. But I think South Africans are fine. They can have the number 1 ranking for a while. Yeah. We've got the trophies and I will say South Africa's got the trophies in the cabinet. That means more to a lot of people. I just want to say one thing though, is you talk about the depth though, and the one thing I don't think a lot of people have realised is that we went to the 2019 World Cup with a Springbok team that was going through. Most of our team was based in overseas, overseas clubs. And now in 2023, 2024, all the new caps. I'm trying to think of one that wasn't from the URC. They're all from local franchises. So the URC's done amazing work in getting our depth up. It has. And this to me is when I say it's a goal, I don't mean it's going to end. I mean that we're on a high at the moment.
I just wanted to make that point. But with regards to the URC as well, Rassie's always said that the URC. Playing in the Northern Hemisphere, it's a better replica of Test rugby than the Super Rugby was. There was a lot of very loose rugby when we played Super Rugby. I know the South Africans love playing against New Zealand. New Zealand has often won in those games, but I think that I do think that the URC is probably a better preparation for Test rugby than the URC is. Just the type of rugby they play, and for Super Rugby, and that's really what I see the problem with New Zealand and Australia at the moment is if they play too much against each other, they get too used to a different way of playing that doesn't really measure up at Test level.
Yeah, I think we're going to start wrapping it up anyway. I just want to ask you: have you had a great week in Nelspruit?
It's been fantastic. I really enjoyed being here, and at this stadium. Well, look, I mean, every stadium in this country's got its own character, and you go to Ellis Park, everybody says, "Oh, there's nothing like it," and then you go the following week to Cape Town Stadium, and then everybody says, "Well, this is a different type of atmosphere to Ellis Park, and it's just as good, it's just different." And then you come here, it's a slightly smaller stadium than the others, and people here. I was going to say the people here are starved of rugby, but that's not necessarily true because a lot of the people are from Joburg and they've come down. Yeah. But just that whole thing of being in a small town and everybody comes down, and it's just a pity. The only thing that I don't like about Nelspruit is that it's in the low veld, and I sort of sometimes think we maybe should call it the slow veld because waiting for a beer here in some of the pubs just takes forever. And I know that last time we were here,
very upset last night.
Yeah, the last time you were here, you wrote that after the game in the game in your colour piece, you said that something about the beers. You said it was a bad day to be a beer beer in Nelspruit, obviously meaning that all the beers were drunk. I mean, I don't ever want to be a beer. I'd much rather be a human. But if I was going to be a beer, then I would probably be happier to be in Nelspruit, because you've got a bit of longevity because the service is so slow. But then it's laid back, and that's great. But there was nothing, to get back to the point, there was nothing laid back about the Springboks tonight.
No.
They were ferocious, they were relentless, they were skilled, they had moments of flash, they had moments of power. They basically played the all-round game tonight. As you say, they could have scored a couple of tries more. If they'd top 60 or 70, I don't think anybody would have said, well, that's not a reflection of the game. And it's very hard to be critical of any area of the box tonight. For once, there were no yellow cards, and it was actually Argentina, who hadn't been carded in the whole championship, who got the cards tonight. And that wasn't necessarily even, okay, the Afaleli Fussy one was, but a lot of that was just I said Afaleli Fussy being taken out in the air, but a lot of it was just the product of pressure. And you put that amount of pressure on a team, eventually you're going to get players sent off the field. And I don't want to hear people sort of making excuses. I know some overseas rugby writers will probably say, well, it was a 13-man Argentina team in the end. But at the end of the day, the Springboks were down to 13 when Argentina scored quite a few of their points last week. So it's part of the game, unfortunately. Yeah. And as I say, it was just because the box suffocated them. They pressured them so much.
I just want to say the one thing you talk about the crowds and that this crowd was amazing today. I at one point turned to Gavin and said it feels electric, and it may have a lot to do with the acoustics of the stadium, perhaps, but it just felt loud. It didn't feel like a 40,000 stadium. It really felt loud, and everything was cheered for the box. Nelspruit, you guys have been great. The people at the Jock, the people at
Hennies this morning,
yeah. and Mozambique.
Mozambique. Mozambique's. That's the best Mozambique in the country, by the way. I've got Mozambiques everywhere. This was the best Mozambique. We're talking about the restaurant, not the country.
We almost ended up there, but yeah, for everybody we met along the way, and everybody's watching this, it's been an amazing week in Nelspruit. This total celebration. We haven't even mentioned Eben. Eben's 128, the fire, everything. He deserves it. What a legend. He's going to. Sia promised me that he's going to make him drink that entire Sanzar trophy tonight, full of brandy. We'll see if I'll yell later if he keeps his word. But now, thanks for watching. If you haven't already, please hit that subscribe button and let us know what you think. Where you thought the box did well, where do you think they can improve, and always good to hear your thoughts. So we'll be doing a lot more of these. We're going to actually be doing some URC ones like this as soon as we get it back into the URC.
Well, let's hope the URC gets some momentum. Just seeing the early games on TV today, didn't look like there were people in the stadium. But when the Boks come back into the system next week, I'm sorry, just on the URC though, playing rugby at 5-1 in the afternoon at this time of the year in Joburg is just ridiculous. But we can talk about that maybe next week.
Yeah, no, but it's been good here in Nelspruit. Until next week, and hopefully we'll be more on the URC train then. We'll chat to you then. Cheers.
Cheers.